Hey, I'm Bill Morgan. This is my buddy over here, Matt Parker. We run the podcast TPKhaos. It's a weekly show where we run through our home game, our Dungeons & Dragons home game. And we thought we'd take this opportunity to go over with our audience some of our homebrew rules and our setup for our podcast and videos, explaining what the different setups are that we have so everybody at home can follow along.
Because we did want to try something different whenever we started making the channel. We wanted to have what you normally see on a D&D podcast. You have, the game board, the people, and then usually either the character or like who's rolling. We went a step further. We add in what monsters are on the table at the moment, giving them little icons for each one. And then we also have dice rolls that are going to go up on the side. So we'll talk about that farther down the line. Did you want to go ahead and start with the status effects?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I guess you're leading us off.
Yeah. So each status effect, because we're going to be doing a little character icon, is going to have the character's portrait itself, and I'll show that designated in the bottom corner. It's also going to have, when they're afflicted with a status ailment, they'll have an individual icon associated with that. And so in order to make sure no one feels left out, we're all inclusive around here. We wanted to go through each one, say a couple words about it, and then we wanted to show the icon so people know exactly what is on the screen, so they don't have to kind of guess. So the first one is blinded. A blinded creature automatically fails any checks that involve sight because obviously they're blinded. Their attacks against enemies are at disadvantage because they can't see, and enemies' attacks against them are at advantage because they can't see the attack coming.
And following that up, we have the charmed status. A charmed character cannot attack against the creature that charmed it. And furthermore, the character has advantage on any ability check to interact socially with that creature.
And then I'm moving on. Next one is deafened. Like it says, any checks that involve sound are going to be automatic fail. The player can't hear, the character can't hear, so what more can you do, right?
We have frightened. So any frightened creature has a disadvantage on ability checks or attack rolls if in line of sight of the creature that has it frightened. It also cannot move closer towards that target. It can only move away.
That's a pretty damning status effect right there, man. Especially with what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Next is grappled. Grappled's probably one of the longest ones because it has so much that goes into it. So basically, when something grapples you, your speed automatically becomes 0. Obviously, you can't move. The grappled creature is attached to you. The condition ends if it passes a strength check or something happens to the creature that's grappling you. You also... So there are some things that can happen to the creature, such as the Thunderwave spell that can incapacitate the attacker, and that would end the grapple. So basically, it's anything that would mess the creature up to the point where it can't grapple you anymore. That would automatically end the effect. Or if you manage to break out of it through the strength check or something else happens, like a partner or a fellow teammate smacks the monster, that would also do it.
Following that, we have incapacitated. Fairly easy. The character's not able to take any actions or reactions.
Something your guys are probably going to see a lot on here is incapacitated.
If they're incapacitated, they're out for a minute.
Up next is invisible. This is a personal favorite of mine because certain hags like to go invisible and run away from our home games, and I hate them for it.
He's had that happen a couple times.
Just a few times. I burnt down a small house because of it. It's all good. But anyway, so invisible, exactly as the name says, the creature just cannot be spotted. There are obviously certain spells and certain abilities that can get around this. But for the most part, attack rolls against an invisible target have disadvantage because obviously you're swinging in the blind, right? If you even hit it, it's a miracle. And then their attacks against you have advantage. They're stabbing you in the back, basically.
And from there we have Paralyzed. Kind of goes back to the incapacitated feat or status. Paralyzed creature automatically fails any strength or dexterity saving throws. Attack rolls against that creature have advantage, and any successful attack landed is a natural crit as long as you're within 5 feet of that character.
And then up next is probably one of the weirdest ones. It's Petrified. So Petrified turns you to stone, obviously. It is a magical ability. The creature incapacitated, they can't speak, they can't move, they can't do anything until it is ended. But because of that, the player, when afflicted with it, actually has resistance to damages because it's just made of stone. It also has certain things, like it's immune to poison, disease, that just go along with it being just like a solid piece of rock. It's a weird one that I've never personally come up against. I hope I don't, because it sounds like a pain in the ass to actually get out of.
Yeah, that's a very specific thing, like coming up against like a Medusa or something that's actually going to turn you into stone. It's a very rare condition, but it might come up. I'm not going to say it's not.
And knowing how just horrible I am with dice rolls, I imagine I'm probably going to be the first one turned to stone. I might power game, but I can't roll for shit.
Yeah. After that, we got the poisoned effect. I'm sure anybody that's played at home is very familiar with that. The character has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks. That's it. I wanted to homebrew that a little more because I'm feeling like poisoned, you should be taking loss on hit points. But rules is written, if you get poisoned, it's pretty much just like the next round, you get a disadvantage on your attack rolls and ability checks. I think it should be a little more, but we'll stick with those rules for now.
I wonder why they did that. Probably because, like, there were like burn stats effects that already deal damage. They didn't want to like double dip or something. But you are right; it definitely should have something attached to it. Up next is prone. So when a creature is knocked prone or goes prone, their movement option is just to crawl, which is at half their movement. They can either spend half their momentum to get up. The one neat thing about it is if a creature is within 5 feet of you, they have advantage. But if they're farther away, they have disadvantage. So some mages might actually just go prone just so they can't be hit by anything, which I've never seen happen, but I've heard horror stories. Just poor DMs out there just, trying to kill themselves, just trying to kill a stupid mage.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't take advantage of that enough. Like if you're being shot at by a group of orcs or goblins, up off of this hill and you can't find cover, go prone.
Yeah.
It's all at disadvantage, The
only thing is, hope to God you have like a barbarian or like a paladin up front, because if the DM's not, a tool, he's going to have everything just rush you at once, and then you're basically doing a pinata on the ground, right? Just getting beaten by everything.
So from there we have the restrained. Restrained is a little weird. It's kind of like being grappled, but it's like one step further. Like if you grapple a character on your next turn, if you get another strength check or dexterity check contest to win, you can restrain them, which brings their movement down to 0. Even with bonuses, it's just absolute 0. Attack rolls against that creature have advantage, and attack rolls from that creature have disadvantage. Also, you end up with a disadvantage from dexterity saving throws.
Which is actually weird. Do you think it'd be like dexterity, strength, basically anything involved like moving, but I guess you can break out of it.
The way they put it is just dexterity, but I think that because it's still kind of like a grapple, you can still strength check your way out of it.
Up next is stunned. So a stunned creature is basically incapacitated. They automatically fail any strength, dexterity saving throws, and obviously, attack rolls against them have advantage, right? The things basically sit there stunned in silence and just takes every hit they can.
Yeah. We have unconscious. Now, this is a rule that we kind of got wrong on a couple sessions so far. We need to adjust that and go straight forward from here. For instance, when an Arcana went down, somebody, when I was DMing, I didn't feel comfortable with it, but somebody said that automatically hits. No, it's an advantage attack against that character. It doesn't automatically hit.
Yeah, because they said it automatically crit too.
Yes, an attack does automatically crit.
But it doesn't automatically hit.
Advantage on the attack. As well, they can't see. They're not aware of their surroundings. They drop whatever they're holding. They automatically fail strength and dexterity checks. And that's it, yeah. And the crits have to be within 5 feet of the unconscious character. So, like, you can't hit a bow and arrow. It's going to do the same damage, as it always would. But if you're right up onto a character that's unconscious and you hit them with a sword blow or an axe,
yeah, they're dead. Yeah,
that's going to hurt.
Especially at like level 1 or 2, it's like you have so few resources and so few hit points. Anything that's a crit is almost going to take you out of it, right? And you just have nothing you can do. But moving on to Exhaustion. So Exhaustion has a whole bunch of just like different levels and effects that go with each level. So basically, if you go so long without food, if you're in like harsh freezing conditions, extremely hot conditions, like in the fire realms or anything like that, you accrue exhaustion just by moving around. So exhaustion goes into something as simple as disadvantage on ability checks, to halved movement, disadvantage on attack rolls, which at that point you might as well just pray you can find something to alleviate that. But then it gets worse. Then you go to like, your hit points are cut in half. Your speed is reduced to 0. And then finally you die.
Yeah.
Ain't that great?
Level 6, you're just dead. We do use this a lot in the current campaign. The way I like to do it is if you say you've gone all day, no food, or like Matt was saying, you're running through a harsh environment, a hot desert or something like that, you don't automatically get the point of exhaustion. I usually keep my DC checks about 10 or 12, depending on the conditions of the environment, on whether you do occur that point of exhaustion.
A good example of that would be in one of our home games. We were traveling through a snowy, icy mountain. On the way up there, we were given a chance to roll for perception to see if we could find some kind of shelter from the storm. A majority of the time we failed, so we took the point of exhaustion anyway. But we did manage to find a cave, and we were able to sit in there and eat and get out of the environment, and we recovered a point. So just kind of like a basic idea of how it would work.
All right. And from there, we have Madness. Now, this one is a big one. You can read up on it in the Dungeon Master Guide on page 260. I've adjusted it a little bit for our campaign. We don't have permanent madness. We'll have short-term and long-term madness. I've also adjusted out the times a little bit. Like it's only 1 die 4 minutes for the short term. That's enough to take a player out of the game or out of the battle for that, bit of time. And then the long term is only going to be like 1 die 4 days. So they might go crazy for a couple days, but eventually they can recover off of that. Another thing we had with that was, where was I going with that?
Into inspiration, probably.
What's that? Well, no, I wasn't going to. There was some other stuff with madness that I meant to cover. We got the days, madness, blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so what can cause madness is interference or battling celestials, fiends, demons, and some undead. I don't have like every zombie cause madness because that's not warranted. But if you're fighting like a spectral undead, then that can cause madness. It's just emotionally traumatizing, wisdom save to prevent the madness.
Now, here's a question, though. So say the group encounters a particular type of monster before. Do they have advantage against the next like madness check against that same monster? Like a celestial or a fiend they've already fought? Or is it just on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, that would make sense. And a lot my players do this to me all the time is they'll present an argument like that, and most of the time I might agree. Like, all right, you fought a shadow one day, and you guys were like, "Oh, that was crazy!" Roll madness check, and you can't stop messing with something now for all day long because you're just fixated on that one thing. But then the next day you fight it again, and you're like,
I just saw you yesterday.
I know this guy. So I would probably allow something like that, and I'd probably call it on the fly, just situational. From there, I guess we can go talk about inspiration.
Yeah, so he actually came up with a really awesome idea of players giving other players inspiration just based on, how they role play, try to pull people more into the game. It's something that, like starting from a home game that we don't do a whole lot, but we need to just to be more inclusive and just, have more fun with it. And so like something that I've struggled with personally is I played a murder hobo barbarian. And now, as you'll see through the campaign, I switched to a paladin. So paladins actually have to obey certain rule sets. So I can't just go around killing everybody or just, throwing them off a ledge when I feel like it.
Yeah.
But I am rewarded for that by other players for actually playing the character. And you'll see that as we go through the campaign. The one thing is I actually asked him about this in one of the campaigns. What if you don't use your inspiration? So you want to go ahead and tell him what happens then?
Yeah, it's forfeited basically. So what he's getting at is, the way we do the inspiration is I start out with 4 coins, one for each player. I pass them around the table, and the players decide if this guy is role-playing well enough to get a point of inspiration. Now, I've already noticed they abuse it a little bit by throwing out their inspiration at a particular time when it's needed for a reroll. That's kind of breaking it a little bit, but not enough. I allowed it. It's not horrible.
If it does become a problem, though, what you could easily do is, say you're not allowed to give it out during combat. And it has to be either before or after combat.
That is a good rule, because the inspiration's supposed to be because you're fulfilling your character's obligation to role play as who they are. And the other members of the table are supposed to recognize that, and it's supposed to force everybody to get together and agree that, hey, Matt decided to be a paladin and, he took the high road. So here's your point of inspiration.
Rather than it being, hey, you're about to die. Here you go. You can have my coin. Boom, nat 20.
You're rolling death saving throws. So here's an inspiration to redo that. Well, he's not role playing. He's just making death saving throws, We
don't want to lose our people, though.
Well, that was pretty good on that. For the next, I'm going to go over 2 things because they're pretty linked together, and that's healing over rests. I'm using a rule called Short Rest Healer's Kit rule. Now, this Healer's Kit, you can only expend your hit die to heal over a short rest if you also expend a Healer's Kit. Right now, in the beginning of our campaign, none of my players have Healer's Kit. Nor do anybody have herbalism or anything like that to make healer's kits. So short rests are kind of null and void, and most of their characters don't even have abilities that regenerate over a short rest. So right now they don't even care about them. They don't care about short rests. And as far as the long rests, I'm using the rule slow natural healing. So you can only use, what was the rule? Only use 1 hit die per, no, you have to roll your hit die like you would on a short rest. So the short rest becomes the long rest. And the short rest, you have to have a healer's kit to regenerate on.
Which is better, because in the campaign we were doing at home, after a big fight or anything, we were going through a dungeon. Oh, we'll take a short rest. Oh, let's take a short rest again. Doesn't matter. About a long rest, right in the middle of this thing, and it kind of breaks the immersion, the realism of it. So going with long rests, basically, you have this certain amount of resources, your hit die, to recover, which, until you get to level 10, are kind of precious. And short rests, you have to have some item to help heal you. It makes it to where you're more thoughtful with when you want to take a short rest. You are more ready for that rest, you actually need it. And then it also makes it to where, we're not stopping every 10 minutes for a short rest because we need to. You do it when you have to.
And I'm sure anybody watching this has played Dungeons and Dragons, and you know what going Nova is. That's when you know you're going to take that short rest and heal up and get all your abilities back. So every time you enter an encounter, you just throw everything you have out at them right away. And yeah, you kill the enemy in a couple seconds, and then you go take a short rest, and then you run into another one, and you just, here's all my best stuff right up front, right away, throw all my skills and abilities out in an instant. So it kind of prevents that from happening. And like Matt said, you have to become a little more thoughtful in the actions. You don't want to use up all your abilities, because the way I'm running the campaign, you might have 3 to 4 small encounters throughout the day. But that last encounter can be deadly if
you're just not ready for it.
You're a little weakened down, you don't have any abilities left.
And like, I'm sure like everybody's heard the horror stories of like, especially the big bad evil guy at the very end. Like, you know, you're fighting your way through his dungeon. You're basically spamming everything you have all the way through. You get to him, boom, you do the exact same thing. Like, there's no build up.
We did that on our home game when
That's exactly
one of their
did.
first ones, I was having them fight a young green dragon at like, what, level 3 or 4?
3, yeah.
They were just babies. And I'm thinking, oh, this green dragon, man, I don't want it killing them. Well, so I gave them a group of NPCs, which they could enlist if they played it right. And I gave them a short rest. And they came in and killed that dragon in 2 rounds. The dragon, did it even hurt anybody?
It didn't hurt any of us. It hurt the NPCs.
Yeah. So I was like, man, this was like 2 levels higher in CR than what the players were. And they just wiped them off, you know.
But the important thing was that short rest. Is if we went straight from the fights before it into that fight without resting, we would have had to actually plan more ahead. It actually would have been a fight rather than just, hey, let's hit this thing. We're at full health. We have everything we need. Let's just hit it. Well, don't worry about anything.
The dice rolls were also with you guys on that. It couldn't regenerate its breath weapon, and I think it missed on its breath weapon on most things.
It hit the NPCs. It did not hit us.
All right, what else did we have to go over on here?
So I kind of just wanted to throw it up on the screen now. So this is the layout that we're going to be using. So in the top corner up here, I'll go ahead and highlight it for you guys. You're going to see where the dice rolls are coming in. So one thing that we wanted to do was, we know that it may be hard to hear and maybe even hard to see some of the dice rolls, like if it rolls off camera or we roll it in a bad place. So we're going to call out the dice rolls on every roll. I'm also going to have it roll on screen so that way you guys can see it. So maybe, you know, like if we just forget or, you know, we're really bad about throwing it in the camera, you guys can at least know what we're doing. The same with the monsters we're fighting. On the other hand screen, I'll go ahead and highlight it now. We're going to have little monster icons that pops up. So this is going to show you what monsters are currently on the field, what we're currently fighting. It's not going to show like the order of anything. It's just going to show what's there. And then one thing we forgot to talk about was the marked system. So it's going to show a little marked icon on them too. So if you want to go ahead and just talk a little bit about marked, and then we'll wrap up the video by me showing off the rest of the board.
All right. Now, marked, this is like a variant rule in the Dungeon Master Guide, but I adjusted it out a little bit for ourselves and homebrewed it. Marking kind of refers to the flanking rule some people use, where if you were engaged in combat with a character or monster, your teammates can get advantage on that target. So what this does is when you enter into combat with a character, you have to use a free action to let everybody know, hey, I have this guy marked, which indicates that I am in hand-to-hand combat focused on this one creature, giving your other teammates that are within 5 feet of it advantage on attacks. And then you also get advantage on opportunity attacks if it runs away, which brings me up to another point is in the entire campaign, I think opportunity attacks are a little overpowered sometimes and it limits movement around the board. All our opportunity attacks are at disadvantage unless you have that target marked, and then you can swing it over to advantage. If you're in hand-to-hand combat fighting something right there and it tries to run away, then yeah, you obviously have advantage on that. But if the guy next to you takes off and you want to give a swing at him, well, that's going to be a lot harder because you're already focused on this one guy over here.
And in the first episode, the part right before this, we did fix the small issue that was. So it's so long as you're wielding a melee weapon. So it doesn't have to be 5 feet. It can be 10 feet. And we fix that real quick.
As long as you're within melee range.
Yeah.
So
obviously you can't do it with a ranged weapon.
If you got a halberd and your range is 10 feet, then you're still actively engaged in hand-to-hand combat with that character or monster, but you're 10 feet away. So that part doesn't really matter as long as you have that target marked and you're within range.
And the one thing I did want to ask is, so what happens if 2 players run up and mark the same target? So both of those players have advantage on the rolls, or should it be only one player can mark a monster at a time?
No, I'm thinking each individual can have a character marked. So yeah, if 2 players go up and they're double teaming on one enemy, then yeah, you could theoretically, both those guys could have advantage, and that would be a very good way to power game through a hard creature.
But now here's the problem, though. My memory is already shit. You'll see it throughout probably the entire campaign. We're just going to forget that marking exists, and we'll remember it at a crucial moment. Yeah. So there might be, entire sessions we have where we just forget marking is a thing, and then we'll come back later. Man, this thing's just kicking our ass. Oh, marking. That's right. That thing does exist. So it's kind of balanced in that way, just human error. But at the same time, if we need it, it is there.
Yeah, if we do forget some rules going through. You guys know how it is playing at home. It happens. Yeah. You just push through it. We review it later, and we're like, hey, we forgot about these rules, and I should have done this on this one spot. The way I run it as a DM is we just let it go as it's called during the campaign or during the session. We'll review it, and I'll tell the players, hey guys, next time it ain't going to be so easy. I forgot about this one rule. You got through it like it was. I'm not going to go back and recon, or what do they call that?
Just go back rewrite. Yeah,
I'm not going to rewrite the story because you're still role playing. What happens. We don't get to change that, But I let them know from this point forward, as long as I don't forget, then that's how we play it. I did that on a couple things with the madness. Mm-hmm. One of the rules with the madness is if you get resurrected or brought back up, you're supposed to roll a madness check. And on, I think, 2 different occasions, I just didn't even let it happen.
Forgotten.
Yeah.
But we play these hours at a time, right? It just happens. It'll happen to your home games. It'll happen even to the most professional people out there. There's only so much you can remember. Yeah. But it also does give the viewers a perfect chance to roast us in the comments.
Yeah, let us know. So, yeah. Hey, in this spot, you're going to have a lot to complain about.
Because we are definitely by no means professionals. But we do have fun. So every time we come in here, we have fun. We hope that by bringing you guys into this, you guys have fun too. And that's why we kind of wanted to just make this attachment on the end of our first video, just kind of hash out some of these things and to make you guys feel like a part of our group. So we wanted just to explain everything.
Yeah, we're trying to keep everything a little relaxed. If we're not engaging in the camera enough, don't feel like we're trying to leave people out. What we're doing is we're just trying to set up our home game, video it, she'll lead you guys through the characters, the dice rolls, let you know what the rules are. You can play along at home, follow us. But we're just trying to keep it casual, have fun. I feel like if we get too wrapped up and involved in it, we're going to lose that spark of enjoyment and fun that we have with each other. That's where the magic is. Anybody that plays Dungeons and Dragons or any other fantasy role-playing game knows that's how the magic's made. It's just a bunch of friends getting together, having some fun. Yeah. And that's what we're going to get you guys. And we hope you feel comfortable enough to hang out and watch and leave some comments, and we'll talk back and make a little community out of it.
And that is one thing, just no matter who you are, unless you're in front of a camera 24/7, just by throwing a camera in there, you do become more stiff. You're worried about, messing up or what you say. So I'm going to stutter a lot. It's just how I talk. It's just what happens.
Oh, yeah, I talk like crap.
But so we're just trying to have fun, and then, like I said, bring you guys along with it. So just kind of wrap up the video. I'm going to throw it back up on the screen real quick. So the bottom portion, it's going to be split into two halves. So the first one is going to be just us. It's going to show our group. The second bottom half is going to show the characters, their individual stats, and then if they have an affliction or not. And then the biggest thing on there is going to be the dice, or the board. Sorry. We want to show you guys as much as we can about what we're doing. We figured the best way to do that is if we're in combat or if we're like, traversing like a open area or something that requires just a board itself, we want to show that off. I mean, hell, Billy here puts a lot of work into trying to make those look really good, so I personally want to show him off, just like, what he can do.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I do. I like any action combat stuff that's going to happen where, you have very specific role-playing in action. I like to set up boards for that, environments with miniatures. So that's what that's going to be. Sometimes we won't have that at all. Like he was saying, if we got a travel scene going through a forest, we're going to just talk it out, role play it like that. If you have an encounter, sometimes I got just a quick little fix we could throw up for an encounter, random encounters, stuff like that. If you don't mind, I'd also like to mention I'm working on starting up my own YouTube channel where I'm going to give tutorials on how to make some of these boards. And show you how I paint my minis, how I make my boards, my castles, building bricks, a whole slew of different things. But that might be for a little while. I'm still working on that.
But whenever that is ready, though, we'll make sure to throw those in the comments down below. We'll make sure to pin it in the video somewhere. Just that way you guys, if you ever want to do it in your free time, actually make some of these things, it'll show you step-by-step how to do it. Because that is the one thing, right? Anybody who's played D&D knows that it is not a cheap hobby. The books, the minis, the actual pieces that go into it, they can be very expensive. But buying the stuff, doing it yourself, will just save you a lot of money in the long run. And if I can say, some of the stuff you can make will look just as good, if not better, than the stuff you can buy. So, I mean, you could be spending, hundreds of dollars, getting the highest thing, or you can spend $50, make it yourself, and it looks just as good. $50. I know, right? Obviously, I'm not the one making the stuff, right? I don't know how much it costs.
No, like, if you got a gaming board or something like that, sometimes they can cost like anywhere from $50 to $150. I show you the tricks on how to go to the dollar store and make that same thing for $3. That's how I do it. Yeah. I've got a lot of different gaming gear at home and stuff like that, and most of it's just made dirt cheap. And when I do my channel, I know there's a lot of other channels out there that do similar stuff. I'm not going to be focused on making it the best you possibly can. We're not all artists. I'm going to show you how to slap it together quick and easy, get something that looks good. Your players will be impressed with it. You'll be happy with it, and it'll last for quite a while. For like almost next to nothing on price.
All right, I think that was it.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking around, and, join us up. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave a comment.
We'll be seeing you guys again soon. All right, have a good one.
Bye.